This is the meeting each month where we do the business we need to do, the things we need to do to satisfy our legal and other kinds of requirements. The board has actually been in executive session since 6, so we won't call the roll as we usually do right now. I want to welcome everybody who's here. There's a sign-in book or sheet or something like that. We ask you to put your name in there. Let us know why you're here and what your connection to the district is. Just as a reminder as well of a couple of things, of course the board will never discuss personnel or student matters in a public forum because that's not legally permitted. We will, in a moment, as we always do, invite community comments from anybody present, but we ask that you keep those comments to 3 minutes. That has been our tradition, so as to give space for everybody to comment and that the board can continue to do its mandated work. Very exciting to have the TV cameras back after a 2-month hiatus, I think, since the equipment wasn't quite working. And so for the cameras, I also want to just let everybody know and to introduce, swing the camera please, swing the camera.
Steve's got to do this.
Interim treasurer Tammy Emmerich, who joined us officially on June 1st and has already been doing wonderful things for us, and we are deeply, deeply grateful that she's on board with us. And then behind the camera is our new, our future superintendent, Terry Holden, who's here tonight, because apparently she doesn't have a lot of hobbies, and so extra board meetings, because that's what she does. We're delighted. She, of course, will be officially installed as superintendent on August 1st. So welcome, everybody. And the first thing we need to do is to approve what I think is a record number of meeting minutes. I'm not sure the board has ever done this many in the space of a month before. So do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any edits, corrections, anything that needs to be done with those? They look good to me. Otherwise, let's call the roll.
Karen Hemmett,
Yes.
Ellison,
Yes.
McQueen,
Yes.
Turner,
Yeah.
Bond.
Yes. And I'll acknowledge person present, and we'll move on to our communications, presentations, and report. I want to acknowledge 2 letters that the board has received in late May. One letter from James Walk and one from Robert Grody. So we'll move on to 2.2 and invite community comments. So those who want to address the board, if you would please come up to the microphone, introduce yourself. You will be on camera. If you want to touch up the makeup, this is the time to do it. And again, please to keep to 3.
Yes, no problem with that.
Thanks.
I'm Peg Morgan. I'm a 3rd grade teacher here at Mills Lawn, but tonight I want to speak for the teachers of Mills Lawn, the teachers of McKinney Middle, and the teachers of Yellow Springs High School. And we want to thank you for working with us on the new contract. We really appreciate our shared goals of quality education with positive outcomes for our students and our families and our community. And we recognize the challenges of what we're doing, and we want to say thank you, heartfelt.
Thanks, Peg.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to come up to the microphone?
My name is Denise Cups. I live on Stafford Street. The only other time I attended a board meeting was to say how much I was against the development of Mills Lawn for the school and the levy that was so convincingly defeated a year ago or so. So when I read the letter in the newspaper about plans or thoughts to sell Mills Lawn to housing developers, I couldn't believe that I would have to give up against that again. But I'm here to just tell you I'm very much against selling that, and we very much like to keep it as a park.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Carol Young. I live on Phillips. I figure you guys know I'm here about Mills Lawn. But my question tonight is, what is the procedure now? What will happen? There's a feasibility study. What is the next step after that? Will you be taking the pulse of the village. I just don't know. All I've read is that there's a feasibility study, so I'd like to know where it's going from there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I'm David Turner, and I wrote a letter to the editor a few weeks ago about this. I spoke with Jack and had a good conversation, so I don't want this to be construed as attacking anybody or anything. I don't want to reiterate my position on the idea of discussions taking place in the school instead of what seemed to have happened. I have a modest proposal here. At the last high school exhibition night, I heard from Kevin Leidy about his students' higher minimum wage project. They researched the issues, they talked with local business owners and others, and they concluded that this is a complex issue with no simple solution. They also discovered that merely mandating a change wouldn't solve problems, but might even create others. I'm sure I'm not telling you people things you haven't already thought or know, but I want to emphasize this because of various things. When I tutor kids at math, and I tutor grade school up to high school and sometimes even college, I don't just give them the answer to a problem and a way to solve it. Frequently they say, the answer's 6. You say, well, how'd you get it? Well, it's 6, and working through different ways of solving it, finding out how they did it wrong, different ways of doing it. Sometimes there are 3 ways to do the same thing. They're all good. Some are better for one person than another, but it's important to go through that process and make mistakes and learn from those mistakes. If I only told them the answer and gave them the way to do it, they only have one tool, and of course you've heard that everything looks like a nail if you only have a hammer. Posing a problem and giving an opportunity to investigate is a much better way of doing it. I think it's also important to be able to articulately explain and provide support for one's view, but also understand differing ones, even if they're difficult. Too often these days, in particular, problems are reduced falsely to 2 equal and opposite sides. Or there's one side and I'm right, shut up. It's more complicated than that frequently if 2 people want to go to dinner, like my wife and I were trying to figure out last night, and we were friends about it. The school system literature talks a lot about creating fearless thinkers, and if students are not allowed and encouraged to understand that there are many sides to complex issues, but are only given one answer and told to believe it or else, then you're going to be creating fearful sheep instead. And I'm concerned that the pressure that the community, some members of the community might put on the school system, you guys and everybody else, to listen to whatever it is that they believe fervently. I think the students should be encouraged to investigate those things on their own, come to their own conclusions, and stumble through the process to learn how to do that and know how to carry on an articulate argument, as well as understanding other people's points of view so that you can do that. If nothing else, think of the money you'll save by not having to reprint all the literature saying fearful sheep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Dave, I noticed that you were reading that, and so of course I just want to, you're welcome if you'd like to submit that to the board, and we can include that as part of the minutes. I don't do it. You don't give it to me.
Oh, yeah. It's all your fault.
Talk's a good game, when he delegates.
I can email it so you won't have to transcribe it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Dave. Is there anybody else who'd like to step up to the mic?
Thanks.
All right, then, we'll move on. I don't think we have a schools in action report 2.2. We do not, so we're going to go straight to our administrative reports, and why don't we make Matt go first? Oh, wait, okay.
Matt is out sick, so he is, just this afternoon, he's got some nausea, another, basic illness.
I'm
I
so
probably
sorry.
shouldn't get into too much detail, but yeah.
Okay, right?
He was like board meeting.
Exactly,
He
nausea.
was sick about
All right, well then, Jack, all eyes
All right.
on you.
The first thing I want to talk about is a change for next year. We are going to add 2 new pathways, career tech pathways in the arts and communication field. So for us as a school, I think the goal behind exploring this, one, it's with Career Tech Ed, you're able to bring in revenue that's attached to those programs, but the revenue has to be spent back in that program, so it's reinvesting in that program. So in arts and communications, it's a way of us kind of building our arts program. And I think goals would include, putting the tools in the hands of our kids that professionals use. It also connecting our kids to more people in the actual industry. And then trying to better prepare our kids so when they leave Yellow Springs High School, that they're more equipped to start a career in the arts field. So as an arts community, not just doing art projects for the sake of doing art projects, but looking at arts as an actual opportunity to make income, something that they can do to help themselves get through college, or if they wanted to be a career, be better prepared for that. So on here I've created a list. So with arts and communication, whenever you have a pathway, you have to have at least 4 courses in your high school in that pathway. And you don't have to have all 4 courses at the same time, but you have to have all 4 courses within a 4-year period. And then it also can extend back into the middle school. So really what we are looking at is keeping the classes for the most part that we already have, but transitioning them to more of a career tech base. And we also think that will support more authenticity and project-based learning, to where they're really connecting and creating final products that people in the actual profession would do. But you'll see many of our 7th grade foundations, middle school art, the live and performing arts, all those classes will now be career tech courses. And then in our high school, we're going to begin offering acting and script analysis, stagecraft, and choir classes. So those are all new courses that we've never offered before, that Lori Sparrow-Knapp will be teaching. We see that marrying very well with our theater program. So when we think about the sets and the costumes, we'll be able to do our students will be able to create all of that for our shows, instead of us having to have someone else create that, which is really exciting. And then the rest of the courses are really taking like the high school band and orchestra courses that we already have, transitioning those slightly, giving more ownership to the kids as far as actually writing pieces, and as opposed to just playing pieces, developing their own concerts as opposed to being told what to develop, looking at the concert as an entire production instead of just preparing the music for it. And then the video production and digital print design courses, those are, right now we have multimedia classes, and that's taking those multimedia classes and splitting them in 2 and giving a more specific field to focus on. Again, really trying to connect those back to people in the profession and doing what the professionals really would do in those fields. So we're excited about that change. I put on here a special thanks to the Yellow Springs Community Foundation. We've got the Community Foundation actually offered a grant, so we're able to have all of our teachers take the coursework that they have to take, to where they don't have that out-of-pocket expense to pay for all the coursework. So the Community Foundation is working with the school district and with the teachers. So like with our tuition reimbursement that we have, they're going to supplement that tuition reimbursement so that our teachers don't have to pay that money out of pocket, which is really exciting. And then I have Dan Rudolph, Matt Mindy, and David Diamond. Part of this process is having a panel of experts who are in the arts and communication field come in and actually assess our teachers and their validity or ability to teach these classes with a career tech license. So those 3 professionals from here in town actually gave up an entire morning and came in and met with our teachers and interviewed them and made sure that they had the skills needed to teach our kids. So a special thanks to all of those people.
Was it Dan or Libby was on here?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, Libya.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, yeah, Libya.
Yeah, you wouldn't want Dan anyway for that stuff.
So that's an exciting change.
Can I just quickly ask, do we get support and help here from the Career Center if we move into this career tech pathway?
So it's kind of, career tech is kind of weird. So everything that happens in career tech happens under the umbrella of the Career Center. So we've worked really closely with Ryan McCord from the Career Center this year in developing this. And like with the high school courses, there's something called a WebXam. And that WebXam score doesn't count towards us as a school or count for us, but it counts towards the Career Center.
Right,
so if our kids do really well on that, it helps the Career Center. If our kids do poorly on that, it hurts the Career Center. Our kids have traditionally done very well on those in our engineering courses. So we've worked with them, but it's really, we could do all of this with a satellite program like we do with Steve Blythen, and the Career Center could actually employ the teachers, but we're giving up part of our state funding for the kids if the Career Tech employs the teachers. If we employ our own teachers, we're not giving up any funding, and we're getting all of the Career Tech funding from the state. So it really gives us like local responsibility or local power decision-making of how to reinvest that money into our program and to build our arts. So,
Right.
yep.
Okay, great, thank you.
Oh, can I? So I think this is really exciting. But, so do kids designate that they want to be part of the program? And so that when they need particular classes, do they get priority?
No, I mean, so those are all of our art elective classes. So we don't have, anybody that's taking the art, any of the art classes are just in the program.
Gotcha.
And it's actually, there's also a partnership with Clark State. So, for example, if a student takes visual creation 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they go enroll at Clark State, and this is just an example, I don't know that detail, but like if they take some of these courses and then they go enroll at Clark State, they'll actually get college credit for taking the courses in high school because we've transitioned to the career tech side.
Gotcha, wow.
So
That's great.
there's a unique partnership there as well. All right, the next thing is just graduation and promotion. So we had 2 great ceremonies. With graduation, we had 64 seniors graduate this year. We had 2 exchange students that spent a year with us. Lovely kids that, you know, with exchange students, the experiences from year to year really vary. And this year we just had 2 kids that were just had, I think, tremendous experiences and brought so much to our class and to our school. We started the year with 65 seniors and 64 of them graduated. 1 ended up turning 18 early in the fall, and he dropped out, went and got his GED, moved to Columbus and started working immediately. But the 64 who remained all made it across the line. And then we had our 8th grade promotion, so that's always a fun time to see those kids all dressed up, and it's just, you know, it's exciting to see kids really dressed up and how much older and more mature they look when they're dressed up.
Please don't remind me.
Yeah, sorry. But that's fun to see them kind of make that transition and to get to celebrate those 2 good years, but then also to know that we have 4 more years to work with them and celebrate them.
2 board member kids in that picture.
Yep.
Yep.
That's right.
So,
Don't remind us.
Tissues, we got tissues over here.
Pretty great evenings.
yep.
Yep.
And then the last thing is I just wanted to thank our teachers. So I think oftentimes we don't say thank you enough, and we have a lot of really talented staff members and teachers in the middle school and high school. And you know that last week of school, our seniors were supposed to be done, and we had 2 math teachers who stayed 5 hours after school to help one of our seniors finish his requirements on Wednesday night so that he could walk on Thursday. And we had one of our intervention specialists spent 3 straight days with 3 students, helping them get those final requirements done to graduate. But then you look at these kids and you can see all the experiences that they've had all the way from kindergarten, and when Mario and I do our senior luncheons, just to hear the kids reflect on the experience. And the highlight, I think, of every luncheon this year was the relationship that our kids have with our teachers. So I just want to thank our teachers publicly and acknowledge, you know, how hard they work, how passionate they are about their craft, and really how lucky we are as a district to have such great educators. That's all.
I think that came across on the, graduating seniors bulletin in the news. I just felt like one person after the next was, feeling connected to at least somebody in the building, if not more, and appreciation towards the community.
Yep.
I mean, I thought that was really impressive and stood out, so. That's cool.
Anything else for Jack?
Maybe something.
Thanks, Jack. Yep. Okay then, and absent Matt Hausch, we'll move on to items 3, our treasurer's report and recommendations.
Thank you.
And we have a financial report from May 31st, and we need a motion for that.
So moved. Second.
This one right here.
This is the May, kind of,
Right. The May,
the one we filed.
right. We're waiting for it. There it is. Okay. Fire away.
Okay, normally you would have a financial report that looks very different than this, and it's a little bit more detailed, but I was able to put this together for the end of May. So what you have here is you have the bank reconciliation, so we're balancing the bank statements to the books. And for all funds, per the books, we had around $6.2 million And then on the next page, what I like to do is I like to look at the cash flow and apologize for that.
Yeah, right. It's flowing the wrong way.
Yeah.
Well, I rotated them, but they didn't stay.
And,
Sorry, guys.
try to keep a pulse on where I think we're going to end up at the end of the fiscal year. So normally what I'll do is I'll put actuals in here, as soon as we get the actuals, and then I'll have projected, and you can see, hopefully you can see.
Right.
That June is projected, but every other column is an actual.
Right.
So based on this, we started the beginning of the fiscal year with 5.4 million. And if things go according to plan, and I can't, say for sure that we're going to meet our projections or not, or be under or over, it is going to be a mix of everything. But the projection is at the end to have a 5.2 million cash balance, and we're starting to spend into our balance.
So
our
we're, yes, so
carryover balance.
we're now in the red.
So we're deficit spending.
Yeah.
And then the remaining pages are the fund balances for each fund. And what you'll see is the last page, bottom line is the $6,236,677 for the books, and that's all funds. So. Any questions?
Thank you for doing that on short notice. And could you call the roll, please?
Ellison?
Yes.
McQueen?
Yes.
Turner?
Yes.
Khan?
Yes.
Mary Hemmick?
Yes.
And now we'll move on to the consent calendar financial piece. That's 3.2 and 3.3. And we'll have entertain a motion for that, please.
So moved?
A second.
Okay. Tammy, is there anything you'd like us to know about this?
Well, on 3.2, the advances and transfers, that gives me the authority to cover deficits at the end of the fiscal year, and so far it looks like we may have a deficit in the cafeteria or the lunchroom fund and the athletic fund, and then what I will do is I will report back in July and have you formally approve those, just to make sure everything's okay with the auditors.
Right.
And then on the temporary appropriations, normally what I do is in June, have the board adopt what we call temporary appropriations. So this gives us spending authority as of July 1, and this will cover us until we adopt the permanent appropriations. And once we adopt the permanent appropriations, that will become our permanent budget for the year. This is just a portion of what I think it will help cover us for 2 to 3 months until we adopt those the permanent appropriations. But obviously, hopefully, we can adopt those sooner rather than later.
Great. And I guess, at the risk of banging a particular drum, we struggle every year with our athletic fund, and we have struggled every year with our lunchroom fund, and so here we are again. It just is a problem, and I think many districts do this with their lunch funds. I think this is a kind of systemic or endemic problem, but so there we are with that particular piece of it. Questions about any of that? Great. Call the roll, please.
McQueen?
Yes.
Turner?
Yes.
Khan?
Yes.
Hemmick?
Yes.
Ellison?
Yes.
Very good, and thank you, Tammy. So we'll move to 4.1, our superintendent updates.
So 3 quick items for discussion. Number 1, negotiations. We are in the middle of negotiations. We began negotiations, I should say, with the Yellow Springs Education Association, which is our teachers union. We had 2 days of it this week, and we still have work to do. And next week we have our first day of negotiations, and hopefully our only day of negotiations with the Ohio for our support staff union, known as OPSE. And we're hopeful that we can have that negotiation done in half a day, which is kind of typically how that takes. So so the negotiations are underway, and we'll continue to give you updates as we progress with negotiations across the board. Second item is enrollment, and there's a connection between B and C, and I'll try to make that work here. So One of the things, so it's documented by an article, I thought was a really well-written article by Carol about the presentation last night on our facilities and particularly the land use study that was commissioned by the Board of Education and the results that came back. And one of the recent sort of data points that we talked to Matt about and I got feedback on was the number of students enrolled in our school, and particularly kindergarten, is raising concerns for us. And let me just kind of share with you where we are with that, because I do think it's something the board needs to be aware of, and the community needs to be aware of. Since I have been here as superintendent in Yellow Springs, I believe local kindergarten enrollment, and what I mean by that is the kids who live in Yellow Springs School District that enroll in our school at kindergarten, has ever been below, I think probably 30 or 25, or 25 to 30, somewhere in there was the lowest I think we've seen. As of right now, we have 18 students enrolled in kindergarten, and so this is normally we're in the mid 30s to 40s, you know, for local enrollment in kindergarten, and right now we're sitting at 18 local kids. That raises significant concern to me. It raises questions, you know, about why. And so I'm going to postulate that there might be some reasons for that, and these are just ideas. It could be that part of the problem with enrollment in kindergarten is that folks are getting an impression that maybe because of the failure of the levy a year and a half ago, that they may not want to move to Yellow Springs with their young families and live here in the village, because it definitely sends a message to folks who are looking for homes, families, anytime a school levy goes down. Especially at the level that it went down here in Yellow Springs. I also think that potentially enrollment could be down because of the issue of the lack of housing, essentially, that's affordable for families to be able to move inside of the village or the community as well. And I think it's a concern to me because it's been reported since the village commissioned the study about the community and looked at the housing study. It's been reported very clearly that we have an aging population in this village, and that our school district, particularly in our community, has an exceptionally higher population of community elders relative to almost all communities around. And if we want a vibrant community long-term and for Yellow Springs to thrive in the future, we need more young families moving into the village. And so my concern is that up till now, what we have seen repeatedly in terms of policies, approaches, housing developments that have gone on within this community in the past year or two have focused largely on senior housing and very little on family housing. And so what I'm suggesting is that this number of 18 students is a potential canary in a coal mine for us in Yellow Springs. And that we are at the point where we shouldn't just be talking about ideas around increasing family housing. We need to be acting, and we need to be acting fast. And my concern is that we as a village tend to talk a lot about ideas ad nauseum, and it's time to act. And I believe we are in a position where if we don't act soon, we are going to pass a point where it will be exceptionally difficult to recover from the position we're in right now. And so that's why I'm excited about the courageous effort the board has undertaken to consider the idea of at least collecting data on the property and the assets the Board of Education has, because what it could do is, if it does two things. If, assuming the board decides to sell the property and potentially build housing within the village on the property the school has, it solves the problem, it reduces the problem of affordable housing in a significant way. Because if you increase the housing stock significantly at the levels we talked about in the report, and you intentionally build family housing as part of that element, and you make it family housing that is at a reasonable cost point, which can be done, then I think we have a great opportunity to not only increase housing within the community that's family oriented, the increased housing stock would actually lower the demand for houses, which would lower the price for housing, which probably would lower my property value, but it actually would make Yellow Springs more affordable. So the truth is, if we want lower housing and more affordable housing, our property values have to go down, and we have to be okay with that. And so that's not going to happen unless we increase the housing stock in a rapid rate within the village of Yellow Springs. And so I would suggest that that's an option that could happen and could become reality. So if we're serious about affordable housing in Yellow Springs, this is a step to really, really make that happen. The second thing I think that's important with this is that not only do we create affordable housing and increase housing, we increase the amount of students who come to Yellow Springs schools. So we have more voters that are parents, that are invested in the school system, that are invested in what happens in our school buildings, and I think are involved and understand what's happening in Yellow Springs, and could increase the vibrancy of the community and hopefully get us close to a more balanced community relative to the rest of the state and the position we're in right now. And the third thing is that we would be able to raise a significant amount of revenue over what we have right now to support the programs we have in our school, to take that 30-year-old trailer that was only supposed to last 5 years and actually replace it and finally take care of our kids. Finally take care of our kids who we haven't taken care of in that trailer, and do something with those funds that will help solve that problem, as well as a lot of the many other issues we have within our school buildings here in Yellow Springs. Now, I don't think that the revenue that could be raised from selling the property and increased taxes is going to build a new school building. We know that that's not going to happen. There's not even close to that kind of revenue that comes from that. But I do think that that revenue will help support whatever other revenue we need to do whatever kind of plan the school facilities task force comes up with and recommends to the board. So theoretically, what could happen, and this is a possibility, it's not what is going to happen, it's not what the board has decided, it's just Mario's brain thinking out loud. I want to make that perfectly clear. So is the school facilities task force could come up with a real solution to the problem. And it could be a new building, it could be just doing the basic repairs, the necessary things that have to be done over time. And it could be that costs 4 to 5 mils, Well, that's a significant amount. The community clearly told us they cannot afford a 4.7 mil levy plus a 0.25% income tax for our schools specifically. But we definitely, could we afford a 3 mil levy or a 2 mil levy if, in fact, we can supplement the rest of those dollars with real revenue from property sales and taxes that we know are going to come in regularly. I mean, the truth is, the reality is the community told us clearly they can't afford the levy we did. But the problem has not gone away. It's the same issue. And nobody's proposing real solutions to this problem except for that facilities task force. I applaud the board for actually looking at a real solution that we actually have control over to actually address the issue outside of the millage problem, and could solve 3 problems we have right here with looking and having a courageous look at our property and that reality. So I don't know if it's going to happen, but I would certainly suggest that if it did, it would be a positive thing to look into.
Can I just interject,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Superintendent, at the moment? Because again, naturally, I mean, Carol did a terrific job reporting out last week. Was it last? Yeah, it was last week, right. I'm losing track. But naturally, that has not prevented the rumors from swirling. So let me just clarify. In fact, that report came to us a little bit late. We kind of hoped to have it earlier in the spring, but the firm didn't get it back to us. As a consequence of that, and let me just make this clear, the board has not even had a chance to discuss that report. We've all read it, but we haven't had a work session or any other opportunity as a board to sit down and discuss the results of that. Which is to say that all we have right now is the information provided to us by, I just lost their name.
Me.
Yeah, forget it. The firm that we hired to do this.
So it's a urban planner firm.
Right, it's an urban planner.
It's not a builder or developer.
That's right.
Yes.
That's correct.
In any way, shape, or
Yet
form.
another piece of misinformation.
That's right. It's an urban planner, that's right, who therefore have no vested interest in what we wind up doing if we do anything with this property. But the board, as I said, I hope sometime in the very near future, and maybe in conjunction with the facilities task force, will be able to discuss how this might or might not be a part of this larger picture. I think what I would just underscore with what the superintendent just said is that for a village that is just under 2 square miles, there's an extraordinarily high percentage of untaxed property. Much of it owned by the college, much of it owned by religious institutions, and much of it owned by the schools. So every piece of property that is tax exempt squeezes homeowners on their property tax millage. We own 42 to 44, given how you measure it, acres of land in a district of fewer than 800 students. We do not need all of that land to do the educational work that we do. Therefore, I think it is simply the sort of basic responsible thing for the board to do, to at least investigate what we might do to put pieces of this, of our property holdings into circulation, into the tax rolls, and as well, making it easier for young families to move to the village, because I think you're absolutely right. They are currently the ones being squeezed out. And the new projects that are being built are all at the senior end of the market. And so it's that young family that is having a very difficult time finding a house here in town. So that's just my interruption.
I have a question. Have there been freak years? I'm trying to ask questions I know people will.
Yeah.
So has there ever been we only had 15 in 2002, or you know what I mean?
So we have that data, and I need to check that out. And I can report back on that in the next couple of days. Just
In case people
next month at the
are
board
afraid
meeting,
that you're jumping the gun or that we.
No, that's a fair point. I will check that out to make certain, but anecdotally, I know from the last several years, this is the lowest number we've had, I believe, since I've been here.
But also, has it steadily gone down, or is this just a massive drop?
That's a good question. So we actually thought it was like a massive drop a few years ago when we lowered for some reason a little bit, and then it was like, we sort of had some precipitous decline over time, local enrollment. So, we'll check that out. That's a great question.
Yeah, the
And
numbers
what's
I
the
think would be
expectation
helpful.
now to August for
Yeah.
local people who wouldn't have already been in?
Well, typically we get 2 to 4 kids that might come in the fall right before school starts.
Right at the end.
So right at the end.
Okay.
So that's probably what happens
Local.
again. And it's
Local.
local, yeah.
And what is the anticipation with any kind of open enrollment?
So we have lots of folks interested in open enrollment, and so we can continue to fill up to 2 sections with open enrollment. But the way it looks is, you have basically 1 section of in-district kids and a whole section of open enrollment students. And so this is a really interesting dilemma for us, one that we have not had to tackle in my 9 years here.
So I know historically it does ebb and flow, and
Yeah.
I think it has done that less so
Yes.
than when I started much earlier on. And there was a little bit more of that, but it's
So-
worth actually looking at and seeing.
Typically, the conversation is, during my 9 years here, do we have 2 or 3 sections?
Right.
Now, the conversation is, do we need
One or
1
two.
or 2?
Yeah.
That's a radical change.
So I've got 2 questions for you, Mary, and they touch on both the things you brought up. So one, I know I've seen presented here all the enrollment data. Do we have
November.
anything that's updated for, but not just, for every single class going
No.
through, like up through, it's historically through time too.
We have all that.
Yeah.
And actually, I can pull it up potentially right now if you want me to.
Yeah, I'd love to take a look at that because I think there are,
All enrollment?
Yeah. You got it.
with,
Thank you.
yeah, I'd like to dig into it a little bit too, just on the data side, but I think there's been some misnomers out there in the community about the enrollment in general. Because I think it also, if I'm not mistaken, the community survey that came back that was commissioned by the village showed that we still have about 25% of the households with school-age kids, which isn't far off of any of the districts around us either. So there's this rumor that goes around that somehow we're becoming less and less, and so that we don't need a school anymore, or should be merging with another district, when in fact it doesn't, from my understanding from the village report, and I'd like to see our historic data on our demographics in district, because I don't think that that's true. I think that's another little piece of misinformation, a rumor that kind of gets spread and tossed around. So if you can get that.
Do we want him to do a more substantial presentation
We can talk about that in July.
in July?
Yeah.
That'd be fantastic, and I'd just like to see the raw data too.
No, that's an excellent point.
Because I don't think it's necessarily true. I know this kindergarten class notwithstanding.
Sure.
I think in general that trend
Across
has
the
not
board, you're
been-
saying potentially.
Across the board and over time, I think we've actually been fairly steady if I remember those presentations we had before.
That's right.
And yet there's this this persistent rumor in the community that we're somehow steadily declining to the point that we no longer need schools or we should be combining with another district, when that's not true. And I think the Villages Commission, and I gotta go back and check that number, but I think that the last thing I saw in that village study is that we were actually the housing study.
Assessment, yeah.
So we're right at 25%, which is in fact a little high compared to some of the areas around us. I need to check that
Let
again.
me share, so this is every year, local school, local kids, K-12, that live in the district since 2010-11. And I think it might be pointing more to what you're suggesting. 603 in 10-11, 578 in 11-12, 583, 12-13, same exact number, 583, 13-14, 569, so that's lower, 14-15, 535, 15-16, 552, a little bit of trek up in 16-17, 562, more up in 17-18, 530, 18-19.
But what's the first number?
603.
So that is a 10-year drop of about 70 students.
Yeah, and it's.
But you have to look at the variance too,
Yeah, yeah.
as you go down from year to year
Yeah,
as
the
well.
variance looks like there's probably a slight curve down.
Yeah.
To be honest, fair. So,
Well, yeah, it'd be nice just to look at that, but I mean, I don't think we're anywhere near the point of, we don't need schools, we need to combine
Yeah.
with a district. I think that
Well-
kind of rumor that's being fueled out there is not being data driven.
well, and the notion that because your enrollment is lower, you need to merge with another school district is one I would really question, you know? I don't think that's the answer. I think the answer is, what are we gonna do to our kids and families, like,
Well, that's how open enrollment
Right,
came about,
exactly.
because we were in this position
Yeah.
before, and it was one way to deal with that.
because kids and families are essential to community. And so how are we gonna do that?
Well, if
Correct.
schools go down, your community goes down.
That's correct.
I mean, you can see that places around here.
So to my second question,
Yeah, go,
and then
please.
last one I got, but, you mentioned the trailers. At one point, we had a discussion that the roofs on the trailers need to be fixed,
Yes,
right? And do we know
We're
where
getting
we
that done this
stand on
summer.
that? And that cost about,
do you have any idea what the final number is right now? Do you have a clue?
For what?
The roof, the trailer? I'm thinking it's, last I checked was around 40 or 50,000 we're gonna have to pay.
so that's 40 or 50K that we're dumping into structures that are
And-
30 years old, that were only meant to be for 5
And to
years.
be clear, those are minor repairs.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It needs a new roof.
Patchwork.
So-
It's patchwork. The whole roof would cost $200,000 just for that, just for the
Right.
trailer it's 30 years old.
So when you said that, you know,
Our public tax dollars.
It's more than the.
that the problem hasn't gone away, the actual answer is the problem's gotten worse.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
And there's a cost to doing nothing, and that's the other thing
This is the
that
cost
does
of
not
doing
get
nothing right
considered
now,
in the community.
$50,000 more.
And that now we're spending 50K in taxpayer money to fix the roofs.
So, CDC, just really quickly, an update on that. I just want to share with the board, and there's a connection here. The Community Development Corporation is a group that's commissioned, maybe, I'm not sure what it's
Well,
in.
it
No,
was.
I mean, I work in public health, so I was waiting for like.
Oh,
The CDC.
CDC.
Measles.
It's no longer the DCIC? It's not?
It was.
No,
the
they're
DCIC.
shifting their name, you
Oh,
know.
yeah.
so
Tell them the
there's-
CDC is not a good shift.
Well, that's a-
Go ahead
From the
now.
CDC, and I'm here to help.
Oh,
So
man.
they are, it's you've heard it reported as a DCIC in the community. The name is sort of shifting a little bit to CDC. It's a group of community institutions, as well as some other folks that are within the community getting together on a regular basis to try to see how can we collaborate, work together, share services to better the community as a whole. Make sure the arrows are pointing in the same direction as a community. Another thing we heard, frankly, in our levy process from the community, which was, hey, you know, we got the village going one way with water rates, we got the school doing something else, and Miami Township gets a really nice fire station. You know, so all of these things are sort of, you know, all going on at the same time.
Yeah, right.
And nobody was aligned, and so we had this sort of crazy thing happen all at once, and certainly was a big contribution to what happened with the school levy. So the idea is to try to all work together, and I want to compliment the village because they've done a good job kind of leading this process and pushing the other entities to come together. And so we're meeting monthly, and we've had several meetings now. It's moving okay, it's still slow, so we're trying to figure out who we are and what our place is and exactly what we can do together. But one thing and one project such an organization could work on is potentially handling a project with the schools. So while there are state laws that say what a school can and can't do with their property, like you have to bid out property, if the property is transferred from the school district to the CDC doesn't have the same laws and rules that the school does. The CDC can sell the school district, sell the property on behalf of the school district for exactly the covenants that the board wants and the restrictions the board wants, and then the money can come directly back into the school's coffers at that point. So I think that's a clarification folks need to know, because I think there's been some rumors out there that aren't accurate, that the CDC could potentially be a vehicle for this kind of work that helps free the district up from a lot of limitations and able to do the project that we think and the group thinks is best for the community long term. So it's kind of exciting. That's one potential project down the road. There's a lot of other things. So.
You and I were at the last meeting together,
Yeah.
so I just want to add to this. Yes, it is really the first time, at least in my life in the village, where representatives from all of the major institutions and organizations in the village are meeting on a monthly basis. So this includes 2 members of council, a township trustee, Chamber of Commerce, foundation, the college, the schools, and I'm forgetting, there's somebody else.
The Community Foundation?
Yeah, Community Foundation, at any rate. So this is an opportunity for us to discuss these things and to plan out jointly what stuff might be coming down the line. The other thing I just want to also stress is that it does not yet exist in any legal form, and I think that's the point. So it is hypothetical at the moment. The discussions are going on, but it will take some while before this becomes a legal entity, and Lisa Abel, who's done a really terrific job of corralling all of us, is taking the lead on pushing that to just even create the legal entity that this would officially be. So that hasn't yet happened.
Thank you. That's my report.
Thank you.
I know I'm not supposed to comment, or I'm
No,
not
you're
gonna
not.
argue, but I just want to ask one question. It's just a question, which is, will there be a way for the public to speak on the land before the school board makes that decision? Will there be public hearings for?
You know what? I have no idea. I'm not going to say one yes or no, because as I said, this is so far out ahead of us that I don't know what this is going to look like. So, yeah, I think it would. I don't think it would be smart to say yes or no on camera, to then be held to one or the other.
You just don't know.
Yeah, I just don't know.
I mean, at this point, I'm putting out these ideas. The board hasn't even had a chance to talk about it themselves.
Right.
And so, really, you're mostly hearing from me, not from the board relative.
Exactly.
So,
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to consent calendar administrative, 4.2 through 4.7. Motion, please.
So moved.
I'll second.
Nice job. Anything we need to know about this?
So some of it's standard stuff. The MOU partnership with Wittenberg, I think we talked about doing it at this meeting, last meeting.
Yep.
It's that same partnership we want to form. They want to formalize it more, especially with the transition from one superintendent to the other. They just want to make sure we're all on the same page, and it's a good thing. You see the job description for the project as learning instructional coach. This is again, it seems to shift every year, so that's what that is. Just FYI, we did post that position, 2 half-time positions. We're in the process of interviewing, and so at the next board meeting, you will have hopefully a recommendation if it's approved tonight.
And
So
that's the one where the money from the way it was run before is
goes into
being
here,
repurposed
and
to this.
we should save some dollars ultimately collectively in the budget from this particular activity.
Great.
And then I think that's probably the one thing I wanted to share.
And just for clarification, because I'm not remembering, that 4.7, that's Thomas's position? Or is that something
No,
else?
so,
No.
yeah,
Yes.
well, I'm sorry, yes it is.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I thought that
I
it
was
was.
thinking 4.6, we got it.
Something quick. Call the roll, please.
Turner,
Yes.
Hahn,
Yes.
Narhammick,
Yes.
Ellison, yes, McQueen.
Yes.
Very good. And we'll move on to the consent calendar personnel, 4.8 through 4.11. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
And again, this is our, it's like the changing of the seasons, right? Summertime, and we do all of this. Anything we need to know about this?
The only thing I'd highlight is that Robert Grody is resigning his position in Yellow Spring Schools. He's, if you saw his letter, it's really, he really loves Yellow Spring Schools. He loves it here. He's kind of torn. His wife works in Kettering. They thought it was important for him to live close back to home. They're talking about having a family, and so they felt like that would be great. And it just so happened an opening happened, and Robert's such a great guy. He would get hired very quickly to do that. So he did. But I will share, just so the board's understanding, we are having a very difficult time finding a replacement.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes, there are very, very few certified physical education health teachers out there right now. If you know anybody, if you're looking for a job, we have posted this position everywhere in the country. Please, call Yellow Springs. And actually, we're at the point now where we're going to probably have to repost and consider what's called alternative licensure, which, depending on how many applications we have, and I need to talk to Stephanie about that again here, but if we do, alternative licensure is a real option. So folks who don't have a license but have a degree in health, wellness, those kinds of activities, we can, and are willing to go back and get a license, there's a way to do that programmatically and become a teacher at the same time. So if that's you, this may be your perfect opportunity. So, yeah. I just want to share that with you.
Yeah, wow.
It's the United something society. Is it like student?
United
Yeah,
Student Society.
Okay, thank you. I knew there was something.
Okay.
All right,
Call the roll, please.
Han,
Yes.
Marhemic,
Yes.
Ellison,
Yes.
McQueen,
Yes.
Turner.
Yes. Now we'll move on to board communications, and how are things over at the GCCC? Just trying to keep it live.
No, I know, but no, that's my report.
That's your report.
Did you see the look? He gave his report.
I missed the look.
Give him the report one more time, Steve.
Right.
Okay.
There it is.
And we'll move on. Board member items. In fact, we have a collective board member item to.
We're gonna do that one first.
Yeah, let's do that one first. Because the board would like to, and I'm looking over here at Stephanie.
Oh, my God.
We have a presentation we'd like to make. And so with gratitude and with thankfulness, we'd like to present you with this, and this is from the board.
It's a lovely parting gift.
It's a lovely, and there's,
Steve, Susan's trying to.
oh, I'm sorry.
You're part of it.
Yes, you should absolutely open it up.
You're fine, you're fine.
It's not all about you.
Nice, look at this.
There's more down at the bottom.
Oh my
Yeah, there's
gosh,
something in the bottom.
look at this.
You might want
All
to.
right. I'm excited. This will be really fun, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Be careful.
It's a picture of all of you, isn't it? It's just of Steve.
Fine.
No, just of Steve.
Be careful.
Just of Steve.
Be careful.
Yeah, do be a little careful.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, do be a little careful.
Oh, that is beautiful. Thank you all very much.
Yeah, hold
Oh,
it
this
up.
is super thoughtful and kind of you. Wow, so this is great. This is a really cool,
There's a stand in the bottom.
Yeah, that's why it helped.
beautiful. Thank you very much. Yeah. So
So there's a second piece
I
to
should put
this?
it
Yeah.
right on my desk, everybody can see.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's the idea.
Yes, you should.
because this, we'll hold it up like that.
Oh, nice, okay.
You don't have to just
Great.
be up
In
against
case
something
they
that
don't
waits for it to
know.
work.
Yeah. Yeah, right, okay. So I can put it here like this.
Exactly.
Ah, that's awesome.
Oh, very
It's
good.
very
Just make sure you have a light bulb somewhere.
Yeah, thank you very, very much. That's
Well,
very
thank you.
beautiful and super appreciated.
Yeah, gosh.
Yes.
Thank you.
Wow. There we are. There we are.
I know, now it's like,
Yeah, now what do you got?
I know, so it's so lame that was. Actually, no, not lame at all, but I like the blue.
It's so gorgeous.
Yeah, it really is.
You should probably turn it around so everybody can see it.
Super gorgeous.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Careful, careful.
People at home, take a look.
Wait, I gotta.
So what does it say? What do you
It
got?
says Mario Basora, Yellow Spring School Superintendent, fearless thinker since 1885. It's going to be trademarked August 1st,
One of a
2010.
kind, one of a kind.
July 31st, 2019. So very nice. Thank you all very much. It's very kind. So, yeah.
That'll go in your office and you'll look at it every day.
Yeah,
And
it's,
think
it's,
about it.
yeah. Say, beat this, Huber Heights. It's gonna be a competition here.
We didn't get that on tape.
When I left
No, we
Wyoming, they
didn't,
gave us
sorry.
really cool play to do. This is like a next step up. So then Huber's got to give me like a.
That's right.
Oh, you already leaving?
That's
That's what I got from that.
Yeah.
It's a gift contest.
Give me a Tesla or something.
Oh, gosh.
Well, yes,
Nice.
other board member items we'd like to share?
So I do have a board member item, and really it's from the whole board, because we did communicate about it a little while back. And it's, so the timing's good now, because it's early June. So we at the board would like to invite anyone who is considering running for school board to please get on board. Ohio School Boards Association has developed getonboardohio.org so that people can go, if they are interested in running for school board, and get themselves educated before they just decide to rush into running for school board. And I will highlight one piece from this website that I think is really important. Under board member responsibilities, the very first sentence is, "The role and function of board members often are misinterpreted by the public." I cannot emphasize this enough. And I'm not trying to be funny, even though I'm chuckling a little bit. I really feel like for your own good, if you're thinking of running for the school board, you're only going to be frustrated and ineffective if you do not educate yourself some ahead of time about what your actual roles and responsibilities would be, how as one board member you are part of a body that has roles and responsibilities and you need to function within that. And if you don't want a really frustrating experience, please go avail yourself of these really cool resources.
Right.
Getonboardohio.org. Because there's time to do that before you just go ahead and fill out paperwork and say you're gonna run and then possibly get elected and be really frustrated and ineffective.
So that came out last year, right before an election, and I definitely wish that it came out 2 years ago. Just because the things I did, I'm glad I did, which was come to a lot of meetings and see and ask questions. But that really gave a perspective, sort of kind of like, here's what you need to know up front before you even take on certain responsibilities, and it's really helpful. I really wish that they would have developed that just 1 year earlier. It would have been super helpful. So I too vouch that get on board. From what I read, I was like, that would have been wonderful. But and then you do get to go to something afterwards, that OSBA that'll, but that's after the fact. That really helps you know what you're in for, and that's what I didn't know, and so I vouch for that too.
And I guess I would just want to say, I believe everybody here on the board is available to talk to too.
Yes,
And even though
yes.
I think this is a great opportunity to learn more, I think, talking with board members is also important.
Yeah, I'm glad you're reiterating that, because that is what we always say, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Any other board
Yeah.
member items?
I've got this, I think I sent out this, I had inquired with the Ohio School Boards Association about doing some kind of professional development, because we have a new administrative team, we have a new superintendent and so forth, and we want to continue to develop our expertise and our relationships and so forth, so I reached out. They do offer all kinds of workshops, and just to give the public some sense of what we might be engaging in here in the near future. There's a workshop on roles and responsibilities, governance, best practices, high-quality board relationships, building team leadership, ethics and trust, meeting management, communication. And just like what Sylvia's pointing out, we need this on an ongoing basis and an ongoing way. And this is exactly what OSBA does for school boards. So I had reached out to them, got a message back saying that this is what they could offer, and we just need to figure out the timing of that, the best timing of that, and how we want to proceed. But I hope that maybe in the summer when things are a little slower, we might figure out a date for that. So, and I just realized I sent you one, but I sent it With your last name spelled wrong. I guess your first name right. My apologies, I'll forward that to you.
That's fine.
Anything else?
And then I did pass on to the Facilities Task Force Commission. I was confused which term we're actually using.
Right.
I've been calling them the Facilities Commission. I want to talk about it, but I did pass on, they have that list of questions that kind of help scope the problem and give them some guidance. So thanks for all the input. I pass it on to them. Then the next meeting there is in this room on next Wednesday. So the 19th of June is 6 p.m. So I expect we may get some more stuff back and iterate it out a little bit, but hopefully the things we pass on help clear up the guidance that they were looking for to hopefully come up with the solution for the facilities.
Good. Thank you.
Tammy, do you want to try to set up a meeting that you were asking for since we're all here, or do you want to send an email out, or what would you prefer?
If we could do that now, that would be great.
This is for the end of June. Tammy needs to have us.
Another meeting.
Yeah.
How about how much time are we thinking about?
If it's just my stuff, it's, 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
So I will not be around from the 22nd of June at the end of the month.
Okay.
So, well, probably not till early July. So if we need to do this before June 30th, I may well be out of the picture for that.
Okay, anybody else?
I'll leave town on the 27th of June.
I'll be here.
So we could do one of those 8 o'clock in the morning, that sounds like
That's what it
that.
says.
It just depends on the day. I couldn't do it the 24th, 25th, or 26th.
How about on the 27th?
When do you,
Or
do
what time? do you-
27th.
What,
you know what time of the day?
Early.
Early.
okay.
Yeah.
What are the-
Well,
There's two of you not here.
well, but three is a quorum.
Great, okay.
So maybe that's just the,
Okay,
yeah.
So you need it to be close to the end of the month? Okay.
Yeah.
so the 27th at 8? Or we just come to your office? Or here? What?
Or go downstairs and where we can sit more comfortably over there, or where you want
Well,
to
it's
be?
just 5 minutes.
Oh, okay, yeah, all right.
Whatever you normally do.
No, we usually come here.
Okay.
Okay, great.
If I can make it, you may want to leave, like, with the schedule in front of me.
8 AM on Thursday the 27th.
Great.
Will that be an executive session?
No.
No?
So we should.
Special meeting.
Yeah, then we should. Thank you, Stephanie.
8, so right now, 8.
Yep.
8 a.m.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we ready to adjourn?
Yep.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Go ahead and call the roll.
Mayor Hemick,
Yes.
Ellison,
Yes.
McQueen,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Collins.
Yes. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody. Thank you. This is nice.
Gorgeous. Don't break it.
Where did,
Yeah.
this is really great. I mean, it looks like it was really crafted.
It was.
It's so awesome. Nice, okay. Oh, yeah. Yes.
Thanks for being here. It's been a good day. 12 months or however long you've been here.
This today.
Yeah, yeah.
Come on, Ritu, it's all right.
Don't break it.
Drop it.